Hello, personal productivity enthusiasts and community. Welcome to Anything But Idle, the productivity news podcast. Today's show is brought to you by Co-working Space by Personal Productivity Club. I'm Ray Sidney-Smith,
And I'm Augusto Pinaud.
and we're hosts for Anything But Idle. This is episode 85 for October 18th, 2021. Google turns on two-factor authentication for almost everyone. Each week, we review and discuss the productivity and technology news headlines of the week. With that, let's get into our our productivity articles first. Augusto, what's our first productivity article this week?
The first article is from Ramit Sethi, and is My Morning Routine Isn't Guru Approved. And that makes perfect sense for me. And he mentions his rules for the morning. I no, you don't need to meditate to be successful. You don't need to journal. You don't need to do yoga. It's okay if you check Instagram. It's if it's not on your calendar. It's okay that if it's not on your calendar, it do not exist. Decide what he called the rich life, and that should include your morning routine. And the reason we brought this article was because you hear so much, and you will hear talks on the next article about 10 things to tweak your morning routine. And I'm always aware when we discuss this, because it is important to know what are those things, but also it's really important to know what works for you. I have shared in this podcast before, I don't check email on my phone. Okay? I don't have it. But that doesn't mean that is the way to be productive. That is the way that, for me, productivity works. That is a way that email works effectively for me. So I thought it was an important article because of that.
Yeah, he ends with three, I think, important questions. He says three questions to ask yourself when designing your morning routine. Number one, what would your perfect morning look like? Number two, what are all the reasons this will never work? And then number three, what are all the reasons you could make this work? And I think those are three questions to address, and it helps you to build a morning routine that fits your quote unquote perfect morning. I would satisfice to good enough morning than perfect morning, but you can like, I have an ideal daily routine, and I know it as being ideal because I know that it's not going to every day happen. The goal is to have the routine that is good enough for me on the average. And so with that, from ignore all the advice about your ideal daily routine or the perfect morning advice to an article about 10 tweaks to your morning routine that will transform your entire day.
Yeah, I get the irony of that, but that was the reason I wanted to put that one first and this one second. So if you
But
can,
I'll start with this though.
yeah.
This is from Dr. Travis Bradberry, and so he's the chief people scientist at LeadX, and he's also the best-selling author of Emotional Intelligence 2.0. And all of this is, from his perspective, research backed. So these are all scientific studies that he has been looking at, and so this is fairly research underpinning why he's making these 10 suggestions.
My computer crashed, so you may need to read the three articles.
Yeah, no worries. So the idea here is he gives a 10 tweaks you could make. All of them are pretty good suggestions. I'm not going to go over them in totality here. Again, if you want to pair this with Ramit Sethi's suggestions, then you get the opportunity to kind of say, okay, are these things that I want to incorporate into my morning routine? And then you can do so. I thought it was just a really good kind of component there to think through what are the things that you want in a morning routine. And again, I try to avoid the concept of like talking about habits so much and really focusing on routine. And here, these articles really do talk well about the idea of having a good routine and how that actually focuses you on having a better life generally, because it's those little moments that actually make things better. The next article is really a series of articles on the topic of the 4-day work week. And there's just been quite a bit of news around this. What brought it to my attention mostly was the fact that we keep misunderstanding the research out of Iceland. And so Iceland in 2015 decided to start doing some experimentation with the concept of the 4-day work week. So a lot of people keep saying then, and you see this being discussed in a lot of the news media that all of a sudden, the entire country went to a 4-day work week and they were more productive. And that is not quite what happened. Iceland has been experimenting with giving people different opportunities depending upon their roles in their jobs and so on and so forth to have more flexibility with regard to their schedule. It has been a resounding success among the Icelandic people, and that's great. But it's not that everybody just all of a sudden, turned on a switch and went to a 4-day work week. So I think that the articles that they're talking about here really do talk to the fact that a lot of these companies, both in the US and some that are in New Zealand, some are in Australia, that they talked about in these three particular articles, have all had measures of success in being able to go ahead and not only stabilize revenue, keep stable revenue, but not certainly any declines in revenue. And engagement at the office has either increased or stayed stable among all of the various companies that have been testing it. Of course, this requires experimentation. It's not to say that a 4-day work week is for everyone, but it certainly is important for us to take heart to the fact that this is being experimented with around the world right now. It's a global experiment. We are all doing this remote work experiment as well. And so we have to kind of understand there are a lot of different factors going on all at the same time. And I think it's important and incumbent upon us to actually try these things out. Augusto and I have said this multiple times in past episodes, which is that those companies that have progressive policies, the ones that are thinking innovative policies, that are thinking through how to keep their employees and how to engage them, and then how to attract new employees in the recruitment side, these kinds of policies are the ones that are keeping them, giving workers flexibility to be able to get the job done and still keep the business doing well, I think is a win-win if there is ever one, right? And here we have the Great Resignation happening, and this is one option in the many other options that might be available to everybody in the course of giving people basically a 3-day weekend. But I also think about it from the perspective that doesn't have to be necessarily a 3-day weekend. You could say, for example, tell folks, we'll shorten some days so that you're able to, work more days, but you basically have a few extra hours every day so that you can go do those things that you want to during the work week. Maybe you give off Wednesdays, or maybe you take off Tuesdays, whatever the slowest day in your week is, take that one off, or the slowest day for the company, you take that day off. And now everyone kind of gets around the idea that we're actually working for efficiency and effectiveness as opposed to just showing up to have a butt in chair time perspective.
Well, and here in the States for years, even before the pandemic, General Mills was famous for that because they are in Minneapolis where it gets cold soon, quick, and summers are short. And they had the policy that I think it was on Fridays, you work half days, the whole company work half days, so you can get during the summer month that extra time to be outside, to enjoy, and everything else. And as the article said, I agree. You need to find ways to improve productivity. More hours in the office are not going to improve that productivity. So there is important that we start finding ways to make this happen.
Fantastic. And so with that, we move along to a make use of article about how to optimize your to-do list more to be more efficient.
They talk about Todoist, and they talk about, hey, you can create a label, email, contact, split your list. And I have been arguing for years that you should have, even if you have them on the same system, a clear way to see what is your personal and what is the work. So that way you create at some point that disconnection. And the reason for that is you may not know what is on that list, or you may not want to recognize that you know what is on that list. But when you have them all and you open and now you see email Ray, and I say, oh, it is 7 p.m. and I didn't do this. And you get all that guilt. And even if there is something on that list that you can do and you can get done, just that all that negativity already killed the possibility. So having the list where you can come in sections and not see certain things I believe, make list way more effective.
Yeah, the thing that really stood out for me in this article was the description of the Moscow method. I'm not sure if anybody, this was, I've heard of it in passing parlance, but this is the first time I've seen it really explained in clear terms. And what it is using the acronym, I guess, is what you're using here. Moscow, MSCW, for must have, should have, could have, won't have. And so you're in essence not just prioritizing your list, but also delineating what you know must, should, and could versus won't have in terms of your work. And so this particular author put it into a matrix, a la Eisenhower, the Merrill-Covey
Mhm.
matrix, and put it into a really good perspective there. And this is the first time that I looked at it and I thought this could work in a matrix perspective if you were trying to prioritize the things that must, should, and could be done, as opposed to the things that are not going to be done. And so you can kind of throw them in the rubbish because they're potentially not urgent, not important, and you don't want to do them. So I found that to be very useful in the article, and that takes us, of course, on to this Better Humans article from Sarah Curry about what happens when your to-do list takes too much of your time. And she took an interesting spin on this.
So there are two things interesting about this. Sarah has mentioned that she's been using the bullet journal for the last 5 years. That is a product that we have talked in the show. We have talked to Productivity Cast too, but I have never been able to get or use it in any effective way. And she said I used it five, and there is a moment that it broke, and I'm willing to bet dollar to donuts that the reason it broke is the volume. It just was more than what bullet journal what could do efficiently. But the second thing was I found fascinating is to say I do automation for a living. I spend 8 hours of my life automating everything, and that's the reason the bullet journal was such an attractiveness thing. And I have seen this with clients over and over that they do this thing automation or they handle this, and then when it comes to their system, they don't want to do it in the same way they do it. They want to find something radically different. So I wasn't surprised by that, but it's really interesting how she moved to Airtable, because as a person who has used Airtable for certain things, I will have not recommend Airtable for clients to manage their to-do list, even that she's doing it unsuccessfully. So it was a really interesting read.
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting. I think that the thing that broke her in terms of bullet journaling was the resistance to the administration associated with the bullet journal, which some people really adore. I mean, some people really enjoy the sitting down with that time and being able to go ahead and structure your next week and recreating the lists and therefore choosing what are the vital things that need to be done. That's what Ryder Carroll talks about in the bullet journal method when he talks about the idea of choosing those vital things. And that means you do have to say no to things. You do have to pare down in that sense. And she's not willing to do that here, and that's understandable. I know what that feeling is like. And so you need to take the time that you would otherwise do in administration and find some other tool to be able to do that. Now, my only criticism of the article is that she talks about Airtable, but she doesn't quite explain what she means by automating these things in Airtable. She explains that she is managing things like cleaning the house and that things are automatically doing things in it, but she doesn't quite explain a little bit more about how she automated some of these pieces. Like she talks about going to the grocery store and the grocery lists are auto-populating. Are they auto-populating because she has it connected to some kind of Zapier script to her grocery store application? Like, I don't really know how she actually automated any of these pieces. And I think that someone coming to this would be excited about the idea of automating parts of their life, but they wouldn't really know how to do so based on the article. So I would have really enjoyed a little bit more there. Perhaps she has some YouTube videos. Perhaps there are YouTube videos on how to connect some of these pieces, but it would have been nice to see a little bit more there in terms of her actually showing us the automation, because I still have no idea how she's doing some of these automation pieces.
Well,
So
for what I understood is you can put an Airtables on a second table, on a side table, connected table, you can put the ingredients. So you can say, okay, this week I'm going to make tacos, pizza, and spaghetti. And then when you mark those, Airtable has the ability to say, okay, if you're going to make pizza, these are the 5 ingredients that you need to buy to make pizza. Same with tacos, and so far. So that's the extent I'm thinking or I thought she was talking about um, automation.
Right. I'm thinking more like I think you use Paprika, right? And that whole notion of using an application like Grocery IQ or something else where the ingredients pull from some centralized database, so you don't actually have to data enter that stuff. And this is where I find like I'm not going to use a better application than Amazon for managing my shopping lists because Amazon has a database full of products and I don't have to buy everything from Amazon, but they just control that piece so well that I use the tool, or I use Grocery IQ because they've got that really down. If I want to track what I've eaten, I'm going to use a bespoke application like MyFitnessPal because it has a huge database where I can scan products and I can enter in, all of those things, and the nutritional components will surface. And so I think this is one of those cases where, yes, centralization can be really powerful. Outlook, for one, it centralizes a bunch of different productivity pieces all in one solution. But that means it's usually a jack of all trades and an ace of none. And that here sounds to me like what's happening with Airtable for her. And again, I don't want to put on her things that are not true. She may be very happy with her Airtable implementation. But I warn everybody, I caution people to think about, all of a sudden, if I put everything all into Airtable, it's just going to be magical and beautiful and so on and so forth. And it's not quite as simple as that. There's still some underlying administration here that we all have to think about. And maybe there's a better application out there that can do it. And I've found that using multiple applications, while they are disparate, they are really good at what they do. And so therefore, it really ultimately saves me time. So just wanted to kind of put that in there. So with that, we have covered the productivity articles that we put together for this week, and we are going to take a break for a word from our sponsor this week, which is Co-working Space by Personal Productivity Club. When we get back, we'll do technology headlines. We have our contributor segment this week, productivity resources of the week, and then we will talk about our featured story of the week. And so we will see you after the break.
While working in person may be normal for you, it's unlikely your coworkers are as interested in being productive as you are. Or working remotely or from home can be isolating, and there's something powerful about being with productive people, even virtually, that helps you be more engaged. If a flavor of these sounds familiar, Co-working Space by Personal Productivity Club is for you. Co-working Space is a virtual work community designed to help members be more effective and efficient in their work and personal lives. At its core, we provide goal tracking and host focused action sessions throughout the week for accountability and camaraderie. Visit anythingbutidle.com/coworking to learn more. Co-working Space lives inside Personal Productivity Club, a digital community for personal productivity enthusiasts, so you can find people who use methods and tools you do too. Again, head over to anythingbutidle.com/coworking to see how Co-working Space can help you be more productive. And now, back to our show.
Welcome back, everybody, to Anything But Idle. I'm Ray Sidney-Smith, joined with Augusto Pinaud for the second half of the show. And so we are going to move on to the major tech productivity articles this week. And so, Augusto, what's our first tech article?
Well, we should make a disclaimer before we start doing that. This is a particular week because Apple did a show today, Google is doing a show this week, and Samsung is going to do. So we are trying to keep distance from these three, so we're not trying not to share news that are going to be involved with these shows. But the first we are going to share is, and that is 1Password new password secure sharing tool. I've been a big fan and user of 1Password for so long, and finally they give me a way that I can share passwords with some other people. And I can define, hey, this password or this link will be only available for an hour or a week or 3 months. So that way, when I send that password with my wife, for example, she will click, but then I know the link will expire, so I feel a little safer since that's the best way to share that password.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's it's just another opportunity to be able to quickly and easily share with people in limited risk, in limiting your risk when you do share
Mhm.
passwords in that sense. And I know that most of my training actually on password management ends up being, well, I'm a LastPass user, and so is my business and companies on LastPass. I do most of my training on teaching people how to use one password. Most of my clients ultimately use one password. It's a really great application, and this is a great tool in their toolkit, because so many times clients are asking me, oh, can you log into this one thing for me and fix it? And now I can say, okay, well, you can just share that one password with me. I don't need you to share an entire vault. Let's just get that one password to me so I can go in, strategically help you there. And then I don't have to worry about having access to those things longer than that time frame. So I love it.
I think it's fantastic.
All right, on to our next one, and I'm going to just jump in here because I'm super excited about this, which is that Google Calendar now has a feature within your calendar events to create meeting notes. And so, if as many of you know, I'm an Evernote certified consultant and one of the Evernote regional leaders, and so Evernote, in Evernote Home, now you can connect your Google Calendar to Evernote, and in Evernote Home, you can go ahead and just see your calendar of events. If you have a Google account, click on the little create note button, and a new note will be generated, and it kind of has a nice little agenda, so to speak, that you can go ahead and use. Well, I'm guessing Google Calendar, got a whiff of that and decided they needed to get in the game also. And so they've created this wonderful little button where you can click on a link inside of the Google Calendar event, and you should see this now. And when you see that little event, it will create a new Google Doc, and that new Google document will go ahead and open up. It'll have the title to the meeting, the attendees who are invited to the meeting, and then a notes and action section. So you can just start taking notes directly in a Google Docs document. Now, I really wish this would have been Google Keep. It would have made a lot of sense to be in Google Keep. But I also understand the flexibility and need for something more than Google Keep. Maybe they should have given us an option to be able to go to Google Docs or Google Keep, just two different buttons. Maybe one that's in full mode, and then one that's kind of a transparency, 50% opaqueness. But either way, they gave us Google Docs. I'm hoping at some point they give us an option for Google Keep, because that would be the appropriate place where I would be thinking about creating notes for a meeting, since it is their note-taking product.
Yeah, that's a point. That's a good point. But I think this is really exciting. What I hope is that now people get to take notes in meetings, because I go to too many meetings where the actions are not defined, the notes are not taken, and then we go to the follow-up meeting to find out what happened on the last meeting that we didn't accomplish, so we can accomplish for the next one. So that was really, really, really exciting. And actually, since my business runs in Google, but I have keep my distance from Google Pages, Google Sheet. No, Google Notes. For the love of God, the software is escaping me. But anyways, I've been keeping my distance. Google Docs. And more, I have seen how I have Google Docs to the point that finally I needed to figure out a way to sort them because it was getting unmanageable. So now this will give me one more set of documents. But at the same time, I'm super excited how easy will be to get these documents going.
Yeah, I think this will be really good for a lot of people, and I'm looking forward to seeing how people ultimately utilize this more in their meeting management. Also note that Google Calendar events can also now include chat, so you can just click on that little chat icon and execute a Google chat among the attendees who have Google accounts. And you've always been able to attach files from Google Drive into that account. You could also upload some images. There's some lightweight features in there, but you can attach things to the Google Calendar event, which is incredibly helpful to just organize things around an event. And so that can just be really useful when you need to, say, if you have a conference and you have 4 or 5 sessions and you want to share with each of the speakers for those sessions the documentation that they'll need, you can now include all of that stuff attached to the calendar events, and it becomes a central repository and a place where they'll be easily and ultimately know where to access that information. So I think Google Calendar events are becoming much, much richer, a la Outlook calendar events, but in this centralized database space. And Outlook does this already, so it's good that we now have parity in that sense. So good to see that.
Well, as I mentioned 1 or 2 shows ago, one of the good things is that, yes, the big players has been Microsoft and Google. It's good to see that they are leveling the strengths of others so we can get equivalent things in one side or the other.
Absolutely. All right. So from Google Calendar to the Chrome base.
And I am excited about this thing. Okay. I may put the disclaimer that I do not have had a desktop since at least 1997. So I've been a laptop, iPad based for so many years. But this Chromebook, massive thing that you can put vertically, I can't justify. I don't have use. I don't even have a table to put this thing. But every time I look at, I said, please, Scrivener, do not release a Chromebook application because I will be dead.
I'm really excited about this. I mean, I constantly say this, and I really am, torn. This recent season of new devices coming to the various platforms, the form factors, the chipsets, all of them have been really, really amazing this year. And so the Chrome base from HP, the 22-inch screen, all-in-one, has really taken the cake for me. It is an affordable, beautiful display, great sound, and you can really put some good processing power behind the device. And it has this rotating screen, so you can put it both in a landscape and portrait view, or portrait view, as you want it. And I am just really excited about this. I don't know if I'm going to get it, but I'm teetering on the edge because I do have a spot here on my desk where I'd really
don't have this spot, but I'm willing to make one. That's the problem.
They have made a really good argument. HP, that is, has made a really good argument for this kind of device. And I feel like for me, maybe an iMac next to an HP Chrome-based 22, those two side by side would be really nice pairings for this. Good cameras, good sound, good, the screen is probably not amazing, but it's still going to be good enough for what I need it to do in terms of productivity. And I have for a long time wanted to make the conversion to not solely, because I'll never be solely only Chrome or Chrome OS, but doing more in that space as my daily driving in terms of productivity. And I would love to give that a go. I would like to see how I would make all of those pieces work, predominantly with having the Linux distro now built into the Chrome operating system. Anything that was going to be blocking me from being able to utilize the Chrome OS on a desktop perspective, I could now do because I have the ability to run, say, Audacity or other desktop applications in a Linux option for it, and seeing how it goes. And really, with the advent of Windows 365 coming very soon to a consumer near you, being able to launch Windows 365 in a browser instance means that it doesn't matter. I can just open up Chrome and launch into it. And to be quite honest, I already have desktops here, so I could remote into my Windows desks and just do that if I really needed the Chrome if the Chrome was really that limited, I could continue running the Windows machines just without, they'd be headless underneath my desk. So I could see myself doing this in that sense. I'm really curious about it. Either way, great specs on it, great review coming out of Chrome Unboxed, and really affordable, coming for $549 USD, top of the line. I think it shakes out at $750 USD. That's a great price point for this really large, beautiful all-in-one device. All right, let us move on to our next article, which is all about the Kobo, and they've released, was it 2 devices? Yeah, they've released 2 new e-readers, the Kobo
two new
Libra
readers.
2 and the Kobo Sage.
Yes, they released that, and they also so the Sage, now you will be able to do handwritten. And I was confused because I have never heard about the Ellipsa pack, but basically the Ellipsa pack, even that they on the article describe it not like that, it is a great one-to-one comparison with the Remarkable 2. So you will be able to create notebooks, do the handwriting, but also connect to the Kobo bookstore. So you can even do it on the EPUBs, on the books, and have a handwritten tablet. That said, it costs the same as the Remarkable. The Libra, it's a 7-inch screen. You can do audiobooks. That is the new thing. It's a waterproof. That's what the Libra 2 bring to the table. And it's $179. And then you have the Sage that also you can do audiobooks. And it has a stylus compatibility. So in theory, you could do similar to what the Ellipsa do, and it's $250. So it is really interesting what they provide. For me, the fact that they start adding this, that you can handwrite on the PDF, coming to $100 or $150 less than the Remarkable. If you are in the verge to test this technology, okay, do I really will enjoy handwriting everything and all this? Well, this is a great device to get it. I always think on kids, maybe because, well, that's what happened with a parent. My kids has regular Kindles. Why? Because they can take them to bed and I don't need to be concerned, what are you doing at bed? You're reading. That's the only thing the device do. This device turns into a great thing for my oldest daughter. And if you want to do electronic notes, I'm okay investing $250, knowing that that's what you can do. You can do PDF and handwritten, but I'm not giving you an iPad where you are going to be fully distracted, or the possibility of being fully distracted at school.
I think this is really fascinating. I think that giving the devices a Linux underpinning, as they have been, these are all e-readers that are built on Linux. This gives a lot more flexibility to the tools so that you are capable of doing more if you wanted to. And I think Kobo is just trying to go into the markets where Amazon's Audible and Kindle are not prevalent or not dominant. And that makes a lot of sense. But it also means that here in the States, if we want, better specs in some regards on a less expensive tablet, and we're not bought into the Amazon ecosystem, these are great tablets, and you're getting handwriting, you're getting audiobooks, you're getting the ability to have a nice e-reader. And so and that the Carta, I think, just has a beautiful display now. It looks like it has really great high contrast ratio from the specs I read. And I think that the Libra and the Ellipsa are going to be really nice devices going forward. And so, yeah, if you're not bought into the Amazon world, I say this is definitely well within the spectrum of devices you should look at. And as you talked about, good for kids, but I think also good for those that are elderly and are not looking to really, build up a large library of things. You can, connect. Can it connect to Overdrive? Am I wrong in when I was reading that? I thought that it did connect.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought it connected to Overdrive. So you're not disconnected from the library system. You're really set in that space. And so I think it's a really good set of options for those folks in that space. And then rounding out the news today with a little bit of Apple news.
Oh, there is a rumor that the new AirPods will or could monitor posture. Helps hearing aids and measure your temperature. So the rumor basically is that Apple is trying to continue to expand this X Health tracking into other devices as the headphones. The reality is a lot of the users of AirPods have their things wearing all day. It will be great if this thing using the technology could tell me, hey, you're slouching. That will make me upgrade again to the next one.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense for Apple to be going down the road of building more health technology into your Apple Watches, into your AirPods, basically into any wearables. You're going to have an opportunity to increase your users' adherence to the health metrics that it wants to prompt you with. But they're using them already. Yeah, if I get walk out of work, put in my earbuds or AirPods and go on my walk home, it's nice that it's tracking that information if I don't happen to have something else on me that's tracking that information. So I think it makes a lot of sense. They're pushing the continuing to push the branding and marketing effort that they're privacy and security minded. Although I think that's a bit contradictory with their their business goals are trump their privacy and security, but it just happens that it works to their advantage. It's like things like they made this effort to basically prompt people to kill off the do you want to be tracked feature within iOS 15. And that rolled out. What did they have? Record ad business for their app store. So their app store ad platform has gotten a huge bump in revenue increases, because obviously now apps to be able to get more visibility, whatever. So Apple is doing what Apple does best, which is making them look good, and that makes a lot of sense. And so the other side from privacy and security is, of course, health and wellness, and they want to push on that concept that this technology that you are embedding in your life is good for you. And so these are branding and marketing messages, and it makes sense that they're going to put features into place that reinforce that message.
As somebody private texted me today during the event, and they just text me and says, and now Apple invent colors. And yes, that's what they do best.
All right, that brings us to the end of our tech stories this week. And that means we are at the point of our contributor segment. And today we have a segment from Penny Zenker. So Penny Zenker, take it away.
Welcome to the Priority Report. My name is Penny Zenker. Today we're going to talk about decision fatigue and how to avoid it. Let's start by understanding some studies that were done by Dr. Roy Baumeister at Case Western Reserve University. They did a number of studies which determined that the number of decisions that need to be made was very much like willpower, where they say we have an exhaustive reserve. So at some point, we exhaust that mental energy and we're in a less capable place to make decisions. And when that happens, then we're more likely to make one of two negative decisions, or let's call them unproductive decisions. One, we avoid making the decision altogether. And two, we choose the simplest decision or the easiest decision, which isn't always the best decision for the situation. So we want to bring this into our heightened awareness, and we want to take a look at what are measures that we can do in order to reduce this decision fatigue. But before we do that, I wanted to name one of the studies that they did where they worked with judges and looking at the cases of where they were offering parole and when they weren't offering parole. And it was interesting that they found that 70% of the time they were more likely to offer parole in the morning than they were in the afternoon cases. And that was one of the examples, and they studied many different disciplines. It was one of the examples that helped them to better understand decision fatigue and its impact on our decision-making and the quality of our decision-making. So let's look at 3 ways that we can avoid decision fatigue. Number 1 is we want to pre-decide some things, and that would be sort of eliminating decisions that need to be made in the moment. So for instance, Steve Jobs, he had a regular uniform, a black turtleneck, and jeans. And therefore, he could eliminate he pre-decided, eliminated a decision that he needed to make every day about what he was going to wear. It may seem very simple and simplistic, but it works. If you've pre-decided what you're going to eat for the next day, it reduces the number of decisions that you have to make, and it frees up your brain power to focus on the most important decisions. That's why planning is so important in your decision-making process. So that's one thing, is to pre-decide. Number two is to simplify the decision-making process. And that means if there's 10 choices, how do you quickly reduce them down to 2 so you can decide between A or B? It makes it much easier to decide and takes less mental energy to decide between A and B as it does to decide between 4, 5, 8 different options. And then lastly, how do you delegate decisions to other people to protect yourself and protect your time and your energy and that willpower and that mental energy that you need to make more critical decisions? Some people have assistants or gatekeepers that decide whether that person is going to get on their calendar or not. That's a way to protect your decision making as well. You don't have to decide it. Someone else has been instructed what's a yes and what's a no, and they make that decision. So you can delegate decisions to other people so that you can focus on the most important decisions. So that's what I have for you today. Be aware and look at ways that you can reduce decision fatigue so you can focus on the most important decisions that need to be made today and every day. My name is Penny Zenker, and this is the Priority Report.
All right. Thanks so much, Penny, for the priority report. And with that, that takes us on to our next segment, which is the productivity resources of the week. And so every week, Augusto and I come across many personal productivity tools, apps, and services in our productivity journeys to put together anything but idle. And so in this segment, Productivity Resources of the Week, we each bring you one, new or old, we think you might like. And so first up is, since it's Mental Health Awareness Month, I thought I would use a mental health awareness app to kind of show you all something that you can use. And this is Wysa, W-Y-S-A, and you can download the apps on Android and iOS. And so this is an AI chatbot, and it's really great. It's anonymous, it's secure, it's 24/7 because it's artificial intelligence. It's a chatbot in essence. And when you open up Wysa, you can just literally start chatting with it. And it is really helpful in being able to guide you in a discussion so that you are basically managing whatever you're dealing with, whatever that difficult conversation is you're feeling. If you're elated, great. It can have that conversation with you. If you're feeling stressed out or anxious or feeling symptoms of depression, you can have those conversations with Wysa as well. And it can walk you through those pieces for self-care. And it just helps you reframe and cope with various issues as you go through with it. And it's an evidence-based application, and it's been proven to be clinically safe. And so, yeah, it's just a really great app, and you can use it for free. And there are other pieces where you can upgrade and whatever else. But I think that the really interesting part is that there is like an employer application. So if you want, you can get your company to basically sponsor the application for the entire staff, and you can use this in all kinds of environments. But yeah, so I would check out Wysa if you just kind of want to have an AI chatbot available to you whenever you are not feeling great, or whenever you're feeling great and you want to just kind of track those moments of joy and positive experience. And I actually do use Wysa for that. I'm always kind of chatting with it when I want to express positive things with it, as well as when I'm feeling not so great and wanting to see about it. And so it has additional layers of capabilities, but that's the primary core of the application, and I really like it for that. And with that, Augusto, what is your productivity resource this week? You're muted.
Sorry. I went from something totally different, and it's a cable. It's a cable that I have, but I don't know how many of them, because every time I go to somebody's house, I leave one on purpose. Because this is a problem that everybody have. Okay, you have the iPhone connector, then you have the micro USB, and then you have the USB-C, and you carry this incredible amount of cables. So I found these cables in Amazon. Right now they're $13, and I have bought different versions of them. But they have the 3 tips on one cable. So now every time I have one in the kitchen. I have many rooms. My office has 3. So that way I don't need to think, okay, do I have the right cable? Where is the right cable? Which connector this device use? It doesn't matter what they use. I can grab the cable and plug it in. So it's something that has made me productive and has helped me. And again, I have lived in many houses the thing behind after people say, oh, that's really cool. Fine, here to you. Because it's really save a headache.
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually been looking at something very similar. I think, who was it? It must have been Rosemary Orchard who made a recommendation on a podcast about a product from, I think it's called Digital Nomads. I'm not sure, but they have fairly Apple specific products, and but multiple tipped travel set with a nice Kevlar sheathing and everything else like that. But this is great to just have as, just especially when you're traveling and you lose things. This is a nice option to be able to have just in case. So great productivity resource. And so thank you. So that's productivity resources of the week. And that brings us along to our final segment, which is our featured story this week, which is that Google is turning on 2-step verification automatically for 150 million Google accounts. And so, yeah, let's start off with some of the facts here. One is that this is not automatically enrolling you per se. It is enrolling only people who have the capability of turning it on safely for their accounts. So that's number one. So that's why we said almost everyone. But if you have basically a security key set up with your account, that is, you have a phone that has the ability to be used as a security key, then you will be auto-enrolled, and you will be taken through the protocol for being able to do so, or they'll just automatically turn it on in the background. Now, the reality is that it's very similar to the way in which if Google perceives you having some kind of, tampering with your account, someone trying to log into your account, and they present you with a message on your phone that says, hey, are you trying to log in to, this from some other weird location? It's kind of utilizing that same kind of prompting mechanism, but instead of doing that for what seems to be, issues of, what do you call it? Someone is trying to tamper with your account, a bad actor, a cyber criminal. They're basically doing this in the reverse, basically turning on 2-factor or 2-step verification for you, username, password, and then that additional 3rd step of saying, okay, with my phone, I can tap, yes, this is me trying to log in right now, and then allowing that in as well. If you want to, you can actually turn on 2-step verification yourself, and I highly recommend it, by going to your security checkup and running the security checkup. And I'm going to put a banner here for you so you can see what I'm talking about. And I should have set this up earlier, but I didn't. And so now I'm going to do it now. And so there. So on your screen, which is going to myaccount.google.com/security-checkup, security checkup with a dash between it. So account.google.com/security-checkup. That will take you to your Google account to start the security checkup. At that point, if you scroll down to the section that says 2-step verification, you can turn it on. Now, the things you want to do are you want to turn on Google sign-in prompt with any devices that allow for it. You want to turn on security key, which would be your Android device or a device that allowed you to act as a security key. And if you have any YubiKeys or Titan keys or those kinds of FIDO keys, you can use those for USB and Bluetooth enabled additional keys. You can use an authenticator app, and you can use backup codes. If you do use the backup codes, make sure that you download, print, and put the backup codes in someplace that is water, theft, and fire safe. Right? You want all 3 of those things, and turn off your SMS verification, because SMS is not secure. You can just easily spoof phone numbers, and that's not good for security. So you can do all of that from this place, and that means that your email is now in a lockdown mode and highly secure from those kinds of hackings that happen from people taking advantage of getting access to your Gmail, a password, or your Google account's password. So that's really what's happened here. Google has also required all YouTubers with channels, that's 2 million YouTubers who who are producing content for YouTube, to go ahead and turn on two-factor or two-step verification also. And that's just protecting them from their videos being ultimately somehow taken over by some bad actor. So I think all in all, a good thing for Google. Those of us who are not among those 150 million Google accounts that can have it auto enrolled need to do it manually, and that's kind of I think the tougher part. When you have billions of users, getting only 150 million of them, maybe we have 160 million total people who have two-step verification turned on across all of Google. We really need to get more people to turn this on, to really nip this concept in the bud of having bad actors break into accounts because there isn't a second factor or a multi-factor authentication component really built into it. Augusto, any other thoughts regarding Google's step into this two-step verification space
No,
automatically?
I think it's awesome that they are finally doing this and make it again normal for people. There is something interesting when you talk to people and talk about two-form authentication, and they look at you like, I don't know. Now that it comes from Google as part of the process, you know, people may start embracing and understanding it is important. And I sadly hear more complaints about that than the actual people who use it, because it's like, oh, well, I now need to log in 3 times. Yes, that's true. You have the double authentication you need to check, but that will bring security to everybody in the organization and even person.
Yeah, the thing that I really also appreciated about them was that they took the additional step of highlighting inactivity account management. And this is a feature. You can actually appoint someone. I have appointed someone in my family as my inactivity account manager. So if my account goes into no use for some period of time, and for me, it's actually fairly short because I know that my Gmail account is attached to many, many parts of my life. If I were, well, when I die, I'm not, it's not an if, but when situation, I'm hoping no time soon, but when that happens, then Google will basically start the clock of, hey, he hasn't used his account in this amount of time. When that time elapses, it will then let my family member know, hey, Ray has not logged into his account in this amount of time. We're now going to give you access to the account so that you can take over and access it from that point. And so then the inactivity account manager can do things like access your accounts and those kinds of things that they do need to do password resets and so on and so forth. So it is a really, really nice feature. And I wish that every service, Facebook and all of the others, really got on board with this kind of thing, because if you are inactive for some period of time, it's really difficult and frustrating. I have a lifetime's worth of photographs in my Google account. And if I were to perish untimely and not have my inactivity account management set up, then those would be locked away from my family potentially forever. And so these kinds of mitigations from data loss after death, or even incapacity. Say I was in a car accident or some kind of accident and I become unable to communicate. This inactivity account management would allow people to be able to access it after some time, which is just a really, really nice feature. And so I'm glad they highlighted that in the entire overall announcement for that. So I think
Yeah,
overall
and
a really good
you
positive thing.
mentioned something really important. They made an incredible way to explain people, to announce it to people. So it was like, this is now what it is. No, no, no. This is the why, and make it slow enough for people to understand.
Absolutely. And so with that, let's go on to announcements this week. We have 3 events this week, Augusto.
So the first one is the Apple event, who happened on October 18. And we are going to do a live discussion on Thursday 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. We are going to have Michael Slewinski, and we are going to be recording live, so you can watch it live, or you will be able to listen to the podcast episode later. The second one is Samsung is also doing an event on Wednesday, the 20th of October, and we are discussing this event live with our Gelwicks, and we're doing that 12 to 1 on Thursday, October the 21st. And finally, on October 19, Google is doing a special Pixel event. Apparently, they are going to launch phones. I don't know. Nothing has been released or leaked or anything. But at 1 p.m., we are going to be recording live with Art Gelwig's this episode 88 and discussing about what surprises this event could have since nothing has been leaked.
We'll just be commentating on what we know and what they ultimately announce. It's reconciling the two things, but yes, the lots of rumors about what's going to be happening. But we already know the phones are coming. It'll be, I think, the curious whether they put out the Pixel Pass, whether the very light rumors about a watch. I don't think we're going to see a smartwatch come out of this. Although I really would love for them to surprise us with a Pixel Watch. I don't think that's going to happen. But we've got those 3 events on Thursday, so you're going to see a lot of us this week if you want, but obviously if you can't join us for the live events, feel free to join us via the podcast after the fact. Those will go out in the feed, but otherwise thank you, Augusto Pinaud, for joining me this and every week on Anything But Idle.
Thank you very much.
All right, everybody. Everything you need to find can be found at anythingbutidle.com. That includes our show notes with links to all the stories, our productivity resources of the week, including our extra stories, things that we couldn't cover. There are probably a dozen other stories or more that just don't fit into our hour-long time with you each week. And so those go into our show notes. So if you review those extra stories and for some reason they are missing something, feel free to let us know. Head over to anythingbutidle.com, click on contact. You can tweet at us at anythingbutidle on Twitter. You can let us know whatever way you want to. Comment on the video and let us know that we've missed something, and we'll be happy to add that into the following week, and we appreciate those things. Also, within the show notes, within the anythingbutidle.com episode for, let's say, episode 85, if you go to anythingbutidle.com/085, you will find a text transcript for every episode. That includes one that you can read directly there on the page, but also one that you can download as a PDF offline after the fact as well. If this is your first time watching the live stream, feel free to click the subscribe button, and that, of course, will give you an option to get notified for when we go live weekly or when we go live for these special commentary episodes as well. If you're listening to the podcast, feel free to consider adding us to your favorite podcast app by subscribing or following, whatever they call it in their app of choice. You can find instructions on our website as well at anythingbutidle.com. If you enjoyed spending or watching and listening to this to us today, feel free to click the thumbs up icon on the video. You can also add a rating and review in Apple Podcasts or Stitcher. And of course, your compliments really help us reach more personal productivity community members. And so thank you for doing that. Thank you to those who have already left ratings and reviews. We really appreciate that. And so with that, we will see you all next time on Anything But Idle. Here's to productive life.